Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1, Cold Bodies, written by Scottson. The walls dripped in crimson, 2 figures standing in the middle of the blood-soaked room, rags held up to their mandibles. "What do you think, Kibby?" the first asked, pointing to one of the bits of skull embedded in the ceiling. "Well, Javal, this was obviously some kind of hit," the second said, leaning down and swiping part of the dingy apartment's blood floor with his spindly fingers. "But who? Who killed this person, or who is it that's currently this new coat of paint?" "Yes." The first alien smacked the second. "Don't start. Look, the blood's still dripping. I'm assuming that this just happened. That means our friend outside might be able to do what he does." Gibby's glassy eyes turned milky white. "You don't mean that you believe that, do you?" Javal walked away, heading towards the apartment's automatic door. "Just wait. She's a sight to see." The investigators walked out of the room, shouting to someone unseen. Another voice joined him outside, and the two conversed before Javal walked back in, gesturing someone else to walk ahead of him. In strolled a human, a woman, her face covered in scars and the United Empire bandana wrapped around her neck. She carried the weight of a mercenary, one that had tumbled through several clotheslines worth of bandoliers and trench coats. "Why is it always bandoliers?" "Shut up! That's the good parts coming up." Javal made a following introductory gesture to Kibby. "Kibby, this is Samantha. You might know her as one of the Lords of War." Kibby bowed to her, expecting her to return the gesture. Instead, she moved and lit a cigar in her mouth, looking around the bloodied room. What was the complaint about?" Kibby blinked, then reached for his datapad, looking up the emergency call report. "Neighbors said that they heard screaming, then some kind of zipping noise. Then one of the security drones comes in and finds this." Samantha nodded. I grew up in Raven. Seen this before. That's not even part of the UE. Shh." Suddenly, the human began to look for something else in the room. Her one eye-patched eye settled on the dim light of an open auto door, and without a word she strolled towards it, hands in her pockets. The two investigators followed, finding themselves in an apartment's bathroom, and Samantha silently standing in the middle of it. Kibby began. "Is there something in here?" Samantha looked over her shoulder. "Yep," she confirmed, pointing to the bathtub at the far end of the room. "Found my hotspot." "Your what?" She walked over, turning the faucet and letting water pour into the tub, quickly filling it up. "Samantha," Kibby asked again, "what are you doing?" "Okay, what the hell is with her name?" "I think they like it. Tried to combine the human and snake name and, When the bathtub was full, the human turned off the faucet and dug around in her pockets. From one of them she withdrew a small blue pearl and hefted it into the tub. A hissing reaction followed, bubbles pouring from the impact point as a wave of frigid air filled the bathroom. Loosely packed ice began to float on the top of the water, finally settling into the tub of icy bathwater. The cigar in Samantha's mouth ran low, and she flicked the stub into the water. It went out with a hiss, and she produced another one from a bandolier, placing it in her mouth and pulling a small string that set off the chemical reaction inside it, lighting it with a surge of chemical odor. She took a puff and then walked over and set her foot on the bathtub. Kibby ran forward to stop her, but was blocked by Javal's arm. "What is she doing?" he protested as she lowered herself into the frigid water. "Old custom," Javal explained. "Lords of War think better when they're in cold water." "I don't think that's true." "This show makes some assumptions." "And the cigar?" "Also helps me think," Samantha grunted. Taking a deep breath, she leaned her head back in the tub and slowly began to zone out of the world around her. Suddenly, equations appeared before her eyes, flashing into existence in a second before being solved and discarded into the void. They splatter patterns of victims formed a brilliant puzzle in her mind, each stripping pieces slowly coalescing into the only true conclusion. It was a plasma double pulse that did the job. But she needed more. Her breathing slowed, and the tinges of hypothermia creeped into her mind. Her eyes fluttered shut, blackness overtaking her. She found herself alone in the void, not alone. Some distance away was a bench, sitting under a single lit lamppost. A lone stranger sat on one side, a figure that greatly resembled the species of Kiwi and Jabbar, stockier and wearing ornate flowing robes. Their presence demanded Samantha's attention. She slowly walked over, hands again in her pockets. The stranger regarded her with caution as she sat down beside him. She drew another cigar from the bandolier, putting the string and holding it up to the stranger. The spirit said nothing for a moment, then plucked the lit cigar from her fingers, bringing it up to its mouth and taking a long drag on the stogie. Wait, how does she have cigars? Did the cigars die too? It's explained later. Help me out, Samantha asked. The spirit of the murder victim nodded. Javar, it muttered, and slowly faded away into darkness, the cigar and all. Samantha woke up in a bath of ice, the two investigators leaning over her. Miss Sato, Javar yelled, waving his claws in front of her face. Are you still with us? The human blinked a few times before suddenly standing up in the ice water, cubes and ice bouncing off her wet jacket. Without even regarding Javar or Kiwi, she walked to the door and then suddenly spun around, drawing out her revolver and pointing it straight at Javar's head. Javar, she uttered, you're under arrest. The holoscreen was paused, stuck at the image of the human pointing her gun straight at the alien's head. Okay, Jack started. So, the spirit said Javar did it. Brahi shrugged from his coiled position in the trade ship's rec room. She freezes herself and talks to the dead, but the dead can only say one word. Why? Spoilers. Jack rolled his eyes. And why does she have to get in cold water in the first place? It's like the stereotype some eyes think of us. Apparently, they think we can think better when it's cold or we're in cold water. So, she's basically getting cold to think better and put together the murder scene and basically freezes herself almost to death to talk to the dead. That's the idea, yeah. And why would Javar come to the murder scene if he knows she can do this? You don't know. He actually did it yet. We just get to watch the rest of the episode. But he did do it. After a beat, the Hasul relented. Okay, so the thing about the show is that Season 1 isn't really good, but it gets better. I don't know. I still have to catch up with Urban Combat. Trust me, it's worth it. There's an episode where she meets Shakespeare. Jack stared at the holoscreen for a moment, weighing his options. He finally gave a defeated sigh, unpaused the episode. All right, but I'm choosing the next show. Is it? It's an anime. Addendum. Cold Bodies is a holoscreen series produced by the Eternal College of Arts, generally circulated in the media around the Upper Perseus Arm and exported elsewhere in the galaxy. The plot revolves around Samantha Sato, a lord with the ability to speak with the dead when immersed in a cold environment, typically cold water. This plot device stems from an inaccurate belief that both humans and Hasul can think at higher levels when freezing. And the show even attempts various pseudo-scientific explanations for this non-existent phenomenon. Each episode revolves around a mystery where Sato uses both her natural abilities and her supernatural ones to find the murderer, or sometime recover a stolen artifact. Despite its mild popularity, the show had suffered criticism from lack of research of Lord biology, culture, names, or history, especially since the main character is a human. But these factors are often cited as the very reason the show was found a small but dedicated following, with some citing, it's so bad, it's good quality, or an adamant belief the series comes into its own around Season 6. End of story. Story number 2. Little Struggles, written by Hidden Fox. The ceiling was cold grey, and by every account, perfectly normal. Keth stared at it. Everyone has battles. This was Keth's. The sound outside his room echoed through the ship. People were waking up. Keth stared at the ceiling. He needed to get up. It's really not that hard. Sit up, pull out the blanket, and stand up. Simple. Still, Keth stared at the ceiling. The bed was uncomfortable. Keth was uncomfortable. He crawled in his skin. He was repulsed by his mere existence near the bed. Yet, He did not move. Keth stared at the ceiling. There was a day ahead of him. There were things to do. Keth stared at the ceiling. He needed to get up. He did not move. He could barely bring himself to blink. It's easy, moving. You don't have to think about it. Just do. Until you can't. You just do your job until you can't. Be you until you can't. And Keth stared at the ceiling. Humans are resilient, you know. It takes a lot to bring one down. They can lift several times their body weight, then can recover from severed limbs. They can work while sick. They can just keep on going. And Keth stared at the ceiling. Humans are fragile. They can drown in half an inch of water. Their muscles can hurt themselves. They can be paralyzed permanently from a small fall. And they can't keep going. Keth couldn't do it. He didn't know why. He wanted to get up. He couldn't. His arm worked perfectly fine, but he couldn't move it. He needed to get up, but he just couldn't. With his full concentration, his full effort, he curled a finger and he made a fist. With monumental effort, he managed to poke his hand out from under the blanket and strained his mind, his body, his soul, and managed to sit up. It was, by all accounts, a perfectly average day. I would quickly like to thank the Tier 5 members, Marky, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Arnolds, Oakfield, Lord Azrakul, and it's difficult to pronounce. Thank you very much.